Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, senior editor behind thesteelcurtain.com, with you for another episode of the Steelers preview, where we are going to be talking about the Steelers' upcoming game against the Cincinnati Bengals at Heinz Field in Week 3. Joining me, as always, for the triumphant trio, Dave Schofield, editor at BTSC. What's up, Dave?
Not too much. I've been dealing with a lot of things with my house and everything going down, wearing out, and tomorrow is supposed to be the last thing that gets fixed until the next big thing happens. So
sounds like you just knocked something over.
No, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. I don't know, but it's just one of those things where life has been crazy. Now I've only without a freezer of my refrigerator. I was without AC for a couple weeks, so I'm getting ready for life to get back to how I'm used to it being, and have some Steeler football this weekend.
Amen to that. Bryan Anthony Davis, our podcast producer. What's up, Bryan?
Gentlemen, it's so nice to be with you this evening. As always, I love the preview. I feel like we need a happy preview. Last week was a happy preview. Then it ended up not being a happy preview. My show that I do with Shannon White and Tony Defio was aptly named on Monday night, called The Hangover, because really was. So no, I did not just wake up. My gosh, I'm doing something new with my hair. Goodness. Everybody wants to talk about my appearance here.
I don't get it either. I don't know. Okay.
Well, anyway. The last time we were together was for the post-game show. That's the problem. So True. This is the preview. We can always be happy with the preview because we should always be excited that the Steelers are getting ready to play again.
And that there's an upcoming game. And it's like I said on my Twitter feed, I think it was Monday last week, I said, breaking news, the sun rose today and the Steelers play this upcoming week. So like a lot of Steeler fans didn't realize that. But anyways, let's talk about the Steelers. Let's talk about the upcoming game. And nothing is more important right now, at least for the Pittsburgh side of the docket, than injuries. Oh my gosh, injuries. I can't remember a game where I've been this, like looking at my watch, the injury report should be out soon. I wondered who's practiced, what is it? So Dave, why don't you read off the injury report for the Steelers leading up to this game this Sunday?
All right, the Pittsburgh Steelers injury report. Do you want the good news or the bad news first?
One at all. Let's give it to us.
Okay, well, how about I give you the nude news? We'll do that. There was one new player added on Thursday. That was linebacker Marcus Allen with an abdomen injury. He did not practice on Thursday. He was not on the report Wednesday. So that's one of those that when someone jumps onto the injury report on Thursday, a lot of times you're like, yeah, was that just a little fluke thing or was it not? You kind of want to wait for Friday to see there. He's only got special team snaps so far this year, so it is what it is. Let's go with some decent news. Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger didn't practice Wednesday with his pec injury, but even if he wouldn't have had a pec injury, he would have not practiced Wednesday and it would have said coach's decision. So right. He came back Thursday and he was limited, which to me is just like, well, we don't need to overwork Ben. So to me, the fact that he practiced at all is a good sign. Very similar to Trent Jordan Watt and Joe Hayden, who were both limited on Wednesday. And I said, did these guys even really need? I mean, if they were hurting, it was okay if they didn't practice Wednesday, and yet they still practiced in a limited capacity. Now, TJ Watt was still limited again today on Thursday, where Joe Hayden, he was back to full. I'm like, I look for Joe Hayden to not even, I'm already checking him off right now, as long as he doesn't have a setback, which, we don't want another Friday like last Friday. So let's see. So who haven't I covered yet? Devin Bush was full days. So there we're getting back to things there. Eric Ebron didn't practice as a coach's decision Wednesday. He was back to full on Thursday. No surprise. Now let's talk about the other guys that didn't practice. Okay. Deontay Johnson, no practice Wednesday and Thursday with the knee. Carlos Davis didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday with the knee. Alex Highsmith didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday with a groin. And Justin Lane went from limited on Wednesday with an Achilles to not practicing Thursday. I don't know if that could have even been something that happened during practice, and that's why he was limited. He might have practiced some and then got hurt and didn't practice anymore. I don't know. So the nature of when that injury occurred could really determines what to think with that. But What do you think of those guys not practicing? Do you think any of those are going to play on Sunday?
I don't think if any player, unless like someone like Deontay Johnson is even a part, limited or in some way practices in some way, shape, or form, I don't think they're going to be playing. I don't think Highsmith is going to play. Bryan, what are your thoughts on the injury report? Once he unmutes himself.
Is he there?
Here we go. Yeah, he's there. He's got to unmute himself.
Got to unmute himself. You're still muted, Bryan. You are literally.
I was well aware. You noticed my lips weren't moving. I was actually looking at the injury report just so I could have more things to talk about.
Well, no, he was doing a Seattle has 2 losses while I was running through everything.
I was not. I heard everything you said, and I kind of chuckled when everybody has groin injuries. And the only reason I'm laughing at groin injuries is because if you go back, I think it was an episode of Cheers in 1984.
Yes, I was going to talk about this tonight.
1985. I didn't know you were going to do this. Wow.
Yes,
we're thinking alike.
About it.
Sam Malone was rapping the TV sport.
groin.
A groin injury. It was like, oh my goodness. So
every time I hear a groin injury, that's what I think of.
So I was making sure I was trying to count how many groins were on the report, and then I couldn't find my icon to get back. So that's what happened. Look at Lake Effect Snow sticking up for me. That's really nice. I appreciate that. You know what? Yeah, I look at this. If guys are practicing today, that's good. The injury report tomorrow, and this is Dave. You guys have talked about this, but that's really what what's going to happen on Friday. We were all, for some reason, you guys weren't, but a lot of us were surprised when they saw the injury report. Excuse me, the roster and the scratches, and to see those 2 names on there, Hayden and Bush, but they were on the injury report on Friday, and that's kind of what messed them up. Kind of messed the team up because you don't have a chance to kind of figure that out. So when you're a new addition to that report, that's when it's a problem. But I think that whole game changed the other day with Watt. I think I still contend that if he's in that game, they're probably okay because that kind of messed up that rotation. And I agree how important Joe Hayden was. And to see him tonight on that, with practicing, that's fantastic. Now, I will say this, Dave, I'm very disappointed, and I don't think it's fair because, we've been doing the Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger. We've been doing Trent Jordan Watt, and I know we've been doing that for a while. Why doesn't Joe Hayden deserve a middle name? Joseph Walter Hayden III.
Okay. He's the third.
Yeah.
I knew he was the third.
Joe Wally Hayden.
Because, every time I have to go say something about Melvin Ingram, and I have to say Melvin Ingram the third and Ulysses Gilbert the third. I didn't know Joe Hayden had the third on there.
Yeah, he's
Let's start throwing that in there.
Joseph Walter, Joey Wall.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Let's make something also very clear. I got a text message from one of my good friends who's a season ticket holder of the Baltimore Ravens. He said, I see Ben's nursing injuries. He always says that Ben's the guy that wants to drum up an injury so he can look like a gladiator. And I said, I'm not going to disagree with you. But what I'm going to say is that the Steelers have to be very careful with how they label injuries. They've been called out several times in the past, 2 seasons for injuries. This goes back to Le'Veon Bell's groin injury back in, 2016 maybe. Just happens to be another groin injury. And
who knows what it's like to have a groin injury.
But think about last season, or actually it was this preseason, when David DeCastro is released and he talks about how he has to have surgery on his ankle. And then everyone's like, well, wait a second. David DeCastro was never on any injury report because of the ankle injury. I almost said groin. And so it's one of those situations where I can see why the Steelers are saying, look, we're going to talk about everything. Pull a Bill Belichick at this point. You're like, okay, here's the deal. Ben's got a pectoral injury. It might not impact Ben's throwing at all. But ultimately, we're gonna put him out there. Why? Because we're not going to get a draft pick taken away. We're not going to get fined. I get why they're doing what they're doing, and that's every little injury. Hey, put it on the report. That's what you got to do. Save your own rear end. So Ben's injury, though, being the fact that it's on his left side, is not going to be as troubling. If this were a shoulder, right side pectoral injury, he would be on the shelf for at least probably 3 weeks. So I think he'll be okay personally. But let me ask a question. I had this written down, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to ask it to the guys, and if we have time, we're going to make time. You think Ben plays better when he's a little banged up? You know what I mean? I'm not talking about a serious injury or coming off of an injury where he missed several weeks. Do you think there's something about Ben that when he's a little bit better when he's got he's got the ankle or he's got the thumb? Back in 2005, I remember Chris Berman saying, get under my thumb and singing the Rolling Stones as he scrambled in Minnesota in the Dome to score a touchdown. Dave, what do you think? Is Ben play a little bit better when he's a little banged up?
I have a theory as to what if that really is the case. I don't have the data in front of me to know that if he does or not. It seems like he does. But if he does, here's why I think he does. Because if he's banged up a little bit and he struggles at all, it's a lot easier for them to say, hey, we think this injury is affecting your play. We're going to set you down. And Ben doesn't want to sit down. So it's like he wants to rise above it because he doesn't want to have to, say, oh, you're not getting the job done. It's because of the injury. You're coming out. That's my own personal thought as to why that could be the case. And honestly, if he rises above that, then I hope he's dinged up every week.
Okay, Bryan, I'll let you answer it. Go ahead. What do you think?
When I think of Ben Roethlisberger, I think of the Hans Gruber quote from Die Hard. Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy? Actually, that's not bad.
That actually wasn't bad.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
That was one of your better impersonations. That's better than your Yinzer, by the
way. Touching Cowboy, or should I say Mr. McLean? Okay, so with that being said, Ben likes to play the cowboy. Ben likes, I think Ben goes to bed at night dreaming of being a cowboy in the Old West and going back in time. I saw an old episode of Fantasy Island when these guys, just today, I don't know why I was watching it, from 1978, but these guys wanted to go back in time and fight like Jesse James or something, and they wanted to be cowboys. They wanted to be Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and I really think that's what Ben wants to do. I think he's going to be like City Slickers, and when he's retired, he's going to go on those trips with Billy Crystal and Daniel Stern and Bruno Kirby. This is just what he wants to do. I think he likes. Look, I don't mind when I rise above an injury and make something happen, and when I do a podcast hurt, But when Ben loves the idea of coming in and saving the day, banged up, limping in. He dreams of Willis Reed too, from 1970 with the New York Knicks, just coming out, limping out. He loves that. I really think that he does play better. And no, he's not faking it. He's hurt. I mean, this happened, but there's some embellishment and there's a little bit of mustard on it. And then he comes out and he's like, guess what, boys? Yippee-ki-yay, I just saved the day.
Yeah, do you think it's maybe because he has a crutch if he doesn't play well? Do you think that a lot of people are looking at this and saying, well, if he goes out and throws 2 picks and doesn't play well, I mean, we know why. But do you think that has anything to do with it, Dave?
I mean, it could be. I still say, I'm like, has Ben ever been, quote unquote, benched where it hasn't been like he can't return to the game because of injury? You know what I'm saying? I mean, any other time he's been out, it's because the injury wouldn't allow him to play at all. So I think he kind of has that streak mentality. I don't ever want to have it be where they have to pull me out for ineffectiveness due to an injury. So I better do better at the injury. Who knows? You could be right with that, Jeff.
Okay. Bryan, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think he's absolutely correct on that.
All right. Brad Jewett gives us 1999. He said, a penny short, but I'm a man of my word. I don't know what he's referring to.
I can explain that.
Okay,
go ahead.
He was wondering if he bet $20 that I was wearing a Xavier Grimble jersey, number 85.
You probably have one.
And
he probably has 2. He probably has one.
I do not. After he screwed our season against the Broncos, I'm still never forgetting. You were at my house for that, Dave, weren't you? The Bronco game?
I don't know. I've been there for some pretty bad losses. I'm trying to remember if that was one.
I don't know if you've ever been there for a win yet, but
no. I was, because you made me watch the game like 10 minutes behind.
Oh,
when,
yeah. Okay.
When
And
Minka Fitzpatrick picks off Baker Mayfield.
that's right. And then you
game.
quit coming and ditched me for Jeff. No,
How can you write breaking news articles?
I know. I get it. I'm sorry, but I quit doing that. But I digress. Jeff's going to yell at us.
But no,
Okay.
they won that game against the Browns.
No, this is actually an Eric Ebron jersey.
Yeah. Okay.
That
He's a man of his word.
I mean, if you want me to prove it, I will. But
I can vouch for him. There it is.
I think you can see it.
There you go. Yep, we see it.
Who's Urban?
Sorry. Well, you run that risk when you get jerseys where I get jerseys.
Fell off the boat. Okay. Let's get talking about this upcoming game in week 3, Sunday at Heinz Field. The Cincinnati Bengals' first divisional game for any team in the AFC North. All the AFC North is 1-1 right now. We're talking about bright spots. Everyone's doom and gloom all week after the loss, but we want to say there are some things that we can glean from the Steelers that are saying, hey, you can hang your hat on this, that they're doing this well, or this player is playing well. So this could be a player, this could be an aspect of the team. Let's start with you, Dave. Give us a bright spot for the Steelers team heading into week 3.
Are we keeping it to one side of the ball for now, or
You
not?
can do any side of the ball you want.
I'm going to say one of the brighter spots on the offensive side is the I'm going to say the readiness and preparedness to be ready to step up of one tight end, Pat Freiermuth. I think
made my list.
between the blocking and the receiving and everything. Now, like I said, it was his second NFL game. If he could have just broke that, he had 3 guys trying to tackle. If he could have broke that tackle, then nobody questions not going for it on 4th and 1 because he gets the first down.
I don't blame him though. That was
I don't either.
Play.
I mean, there was 3 or 4 guys on him.
Yeah.
And he was fighting. I mean, and sometimes you got to realize the defense makes a lot of money to try to stop you as well. So, but I feel like he's been a real bright spot, and I think he'll just, I mean, his snap counts have exceeded Eric Ebron both weeks. I think he's someone who's going to continue to grow and to blossom into what the Steelers said. Because at the time, I didn't want them to draft him because I wanted him to go offensive line in round 1, and I'm kind of, people are seeing why that I kept saying all off season, if the right guy was there, that if you don't rebuild the line, none of the other stuff's going to matter. But at least Freiermuth is showing that, hey, the Steelers really saw something, and that's why they took him where they did.
Did anyone watch Ben's press conference this week in its entirety? I know I did.
I did.
Did you hear what he said?
Oh, did you got a bee on your face?
No, not that. That wasn't funny, but no. Where he said, I talked to Coach Canada and said,
yeah, he was talking about Freiermuth.
We need to get Pat Freiermuth involved. And I'm thinking, that's all it took? Yeah. That's all it took was saying to Coach Canada, we need to get Pat involved. And 4 catches later, he's 4 for 4 and they're moving the ball down the field. Hello, come on.
Now, I'm not blaming Coach Canada, though.
No, I'm not. But I heard that and I'm literally cleaning dishes in the kitchen. I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me. Like, this sounds so bad to me. But anyways, I don't know if
because it might have been that maybe Coach Canada didn't realize that, you still got to do what your quarterback can do. So the fact that your quarterback is saying, I mean, Coach Canada is probably like, finally, let's do it.
Well, my gosh, let's do that in week 3 right out of the gate. Let's not wait until the second half, 4th quarter to start attacking the middle of the field with the tight end. It doesn't have to be a deep seam pass. Think about what he used to do with Heath. Yeah. Gosh, Heath would run 10 yards, curl, boom, first down.
They're going against a single deep safety constantly, and that's why they can't run the ball. Jeffrey outlined that beautifully on, why can't I remember the name of that podcast? Cutting Room Floor.
Cutting Room Floor. Yes, it was a good show.
And that's what they have to do, and that's why you're not seeing those passes there. But you're right, even just those intermediate passes to the tight end in the middle of the field is really going to help.
Yeah. Okay, Bryan, you can either talk about Freiermuth, but either way you're going next. So what's your bright spot?
Freiermuth was number 1 on my list, but I could go somewhere else. And I really love what he's doing. I was actually trying to lobby Jeff the other day to put him on the winners list because it seems like he could change a lot of things for that team. And I could see if they start going to him more, that's going to open up that middle of the field. And then, my gosh, if he's in the middle of the field, then you're going to open up with the other wide receivers on the ends. And that's who I want to talk about today. And with Deontay Johnson hurt, I want to talk about a guy who I love his 2021 season so far, and it's Juju Smith-Schuster. I love it because I really think he's going to be a bright spot in this game. I feel like he is the guy that when the chips are down, that Ben's going to trust, and he's looked really good this year so far. I don't know if he has a drop. He has one. I don't think, unless I'm just watching wrong and watching with the black and gold colored glasses, but I really like what he's doing. I think he's playing warrior football. We always talked about how he does the combative catch, but with Deontay gone, there's going to be more opportunities for Chase Claypool, but there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Juju Smith-Schuster to say, I'm taking the reins, and he's done that. And when it comes down to it, Juju can do that, and we're not going to see, you're going to see more touchdowns than your yards. When I say, he's not going to have 18 yards and 19 touchdowns. I'm not saying that. I'm just going to say the yards aren't going to be fantastic for him, but you're still going to have the catches, like 97 catches last year. You're going to get a lot from Juju. And the way the other receivers are set up, I think they'll do really well. But Juju's still the leader of that group. Don't be mistaken, even though Deontay Johnson has been getting most of the balls this year. There's still plenty to go around. I doubt he's going to be there this week, and I think it's Juju's time to step up, and I think he's going to shine.
I can't complain about Juju. Dave, you have anything to say about Juju Smith-Schuster?
No. I mean, I think he's done what they've wanted him to do. I mean, he has exactly what Bryan said. I don't really know that I could add anything more other than repeat it. So I should just not say anything.
There you go. Sean Manahan gave us $5, and he said they need shot plays with built-in screens for quick pressure, but Ben and the outlet receiver need to be on the same page. Well, that outlet receiver is the one that might not play this week. That would be Deontay Johnson, and he's the one that is normally not on the same page, which could change the dynamic of the receiving core a little bit. We'll talk about that hopefully a little bit later. I'm going to go with Naji Harris as being a bright spot. This young man had a lot of we'll just say he had a lot of pressure on him as a first round draft pick to come in and save the day. And I think it's pretty obvious, Dave, what you said earlier was spot on. If you don't have the line, it doesn't matter. But I think that Naji shows that a running back can matter. I mean, he's making at least something out of nothing on certain plays. We talked about it last week. I'm sorry, the post-game show. What would this offense look like with Benny Snell at running back? Dave said it'd be even worse. And I think Naji Harris is going to break out. I think he's going to settle in. I do think the offensive line is going to improve as well. It might not be by leaps and bounds, but maybe baby steps. But improvement is improvement. I think that Naji Harris is playing great. I have him on my bright spot.
Yeah, Can I jump in and say something?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, because I kind of also want to clarify something that I said with mine when I said about, they took Harris and Freiermuth, and I really wanted them to address the line. I'm not saying that I feel like they were wrong, because some people were bringing up the live chat, and they're exactly right. I feel that the Steelers got value for where they took their linemen. I think Kendrick Green, my goodness, what did we say about Dan Moore when he was drafted? You know what? Hopefully he gets the Justin Lane treatment. That's what I said, where he doesn't have to play a single offensive snap and can just, develop and learn and, down the road. My goodness, he is the starting left tackle and has played every snap through the first two games. That is not what the Steelers expected. But you have to admit that people were bringing it up. Leatherwood went before the Steelers picked at 24. And Dan Moore's playing better than he is. You know what I'm saying? So the Steelers really did get some good value picks. And honestly, I don't know that they would have had that game-changing lineman in this draft when you look at what everyone's doing right now. Maybe there was one. Maybe there's someone I've missed playing on a team that I haven't watched yet right now that they could have selected. So I understand what they did, but really the offensive line, that's the straw that stirs the drink, if you know what I mean. You can't really get much going on without it. But you're right about Naji Harris. It just kind of goes to show, everybody wanted the running back. And I kept saying, running back is great, and he's going to pay off eventually. But you got to try to get this line coming together first in order for anything to work.
Bryan, any comment on Naji Harris?
Yeah, I actually have a couple. First of all, when we go back to the draft, there was that one lineman that fell all the way down to 23, and the Steelers just missed out on him, and it was Christian Darrisaw. But there's part of me that was glad that Darrisaw was picked there because the Steelers, I still think we're going to go with Naji Harris, and that I thought that cleared up a lot of what Dave was saying. The lineman that you were going to get there was not going to be as of much impact as what Naji Harris can be. So with Darrisaw gone, it kind of made it real. Okay, you don't have to hang that well, we should have taken Darrisaw on Naji Harris because he doesn't need that. One thing I like about Naji Harris doesn't care. He's confident in his abilities. He's not complaining. He's going out and doing his job. And you want the difference. Jeff made a great comment, and Dave too as well, when we were talking about what would it be like with Benny Snell in there, because you see the difference between an average back and then a superstar. For the superstar that Naji Harris is going to be, just for the fact of what he's making out of no holes. And he's getting things done. So the one thing I'd like Ben to do is go to Matt Canada. If you have to go to Matt Canada and say for Pat Fryermuth, go to Matt Canada and say, all right, we need to swing it out to Naji a whole lot more. You're going to get a lot of magic if you do that. Jeff, it was a good pick. It was a good pick to say that he is going to be shine this weekend. He's going to break out, but it's not the fact that he hasn't broken out. It's not due to Naji Harris being inept. It's due to everything going on around him. And when things improve, you're going to be, the men in the hills are going to be singing songs about him. And where did I get that phrase? From Cheers also.
All right, let's do one more before we take our break. Dave, what's another aspect of the Steelers or a player that's a bright spot?
Oh man, I've been focused on, okay, I'm going to go who I think is kind of obvious is that he was a bright spot last year, and the fact that he wasn't, he was a dark spot in 2018, but hasn't been since. And that is one Chris Boswell that you can count on him. I mean, come in and set the Heinz Field record and everything else. I mean, that's something that that if the offense is struggling and you're relying on the defense to keep you in games and you're going to be in tight games, knowing you have a field goal kicker that can come through for you is huge. And I don't know about you all, but him hitting that kick in Heinz Field already gives me more confidence that they don't have, I used to have an idea how close I wanted the Steelers to be because of what I thought Boswell could do. That just bumped back 5 yards for me. I really feel like he's a bright spot and a strength to this team and can, if given the opportunity, can win them games this year. And
it wasn't one of those low lining kicks like that. In a golf terms, maybe it was just my family that says that was dead nuts. I mean, that's what you say when you hit a putt and it's just like right in the center of the cup. Boy, that was dead nuts. That kick was dead nuts. And I got a text from my dad, dead nuts from 56.
I thought that was what's going on with the injury report. Sorry.
Yes, that too. Those are different dead nuts. All right, Bryan, what do you want to say about Chris Boswell?
I just feel right now that he is the most reliable kicker that the Pittsburgh Steelers have had for a long time. And I'm going to go back. I'm actually going to pass up Sweezum and Skippy Reed and say since Norm Johnson. I really think that, I mean, of course you can look at Gary Anderson and put him on that list. I mean, he's considered the greatest in history, but Tony and I have done a lot of retro shows and we're like, wow, he missed a lot of kicks, but he was around a long time and he was valuable at a lot of points. But I really think that Chris Boswell will probably go down in history as the best ever. And it's funny because, when he was going through that problem back in 18, Jeff brought up the golfing comparison and he brought up the word, the yips. And that was the only year that he was going. And if you enjoy the show Ted Lasso and you guys haven't watched it yet, you've got to. It's amazing. But they're not even allowed to say the yips. That's just a bad thing. You can't even say the word the yips. But Boswell, a lot of people were ready to run him out of town, but something was wrong. And when he's right, he's right. And like you all said, when he lined up for that 56-yard attempt, or 50, what was it, 56?
56, yep.
56. And then when he lined up for the 59 last year and got it, I was like, yeah, no problem. because this guy I have complete confidence in him. If they're down and they need a score, I'm automatically thinking in my head that it's 7. That's how I feel about Chris Boswell right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And in golf terms, you don't even say the word shank if you're ever on the course.
Okay.
If someone shanks the ball, you said, was that the S word? Did you just do that? All right.
I know a couple people with that last name. That would be no wonder they don't play.
I do too. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break for the audio listeners, audio only on our podcast platform. Make sure you head over to part 2. For those that are watching live on YouTube or Facebook, don't go anywhere. We are not going anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to part 2 of the Steelers preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, senior editor behind thesteelcurtain.com. Joining us as always, Dave Schofield and Bryan Anthony Davis. We're going over our bright spots. It is Bryan's turn. Dave, at the end of part 1, just gave us the Chris Boswell, which I agree with 100%. Bryan, who's a bright spot, or what is a bright spot for you heading into week 3?
Well, I still consider the defensive line to be a bright spot for the Steelers because it's led by Cam Hayward. And my gosh, Cam Hayward's the guy that, he was considered a bust his first couple years. I think the 3rd year he finally started to break out. Next thing you know, in the 4th year, they're definitely extending him. And it seems like every year you just see more and more. And we talked about last week, I think it was when I brought it up, and then Dave said, is Ben a guy that can carry the team on his back? And I don't think he is anymore. And that was the discussion, and that's for another time. But Cam Hayward, he was the number 1 pick in 2011. He's in his 30s. And it seems like he's Benjamin Button in a way because he's going in the opposite direction as far as aging. I think he gets better with years. I think if you want a good nickname for him, I just call him Fine Wine because that's exactly what Cam Hayward is.
That's what I thought. That's a good one.
He's
Fine wine.
I tell you what, and not only is that, when they lose, you're going to hear from Ben. You are, and Ben is going to say, "I should have played better." Then Cam is not afraid to call you out. And he's also going to say, we need to play better as a group, but I'm going to call us all out and say that it's not just because of one person, because Ben likes to put it on his shoulders because that's kind of the game he plays. But with Cam, I could guarantee you he goes into the locker room and he is the one calling the players' meetings. He's the one calling everybody out and saying that we need to do better. But yeah, no, I'm not going to say that he's old. I'm just going to say that this guy is really, he's just a champion on this team. And you think he could have played in the 1970s? Of course, he could have played on that steel curtain. He really could. I don't know who you'd replace him with, but he would. Who he would replace. But all I'm saying is Cam just keeps getting it done week after week. And when Tuitt goes out, he's like, all right, don't worry, I've got this. So if you look at the rest of the defensive line, I think Wormley I think he's cutting it. I think he's getting things done. And wherever they go, as far as what they're going to do about replacing Tyson, there's a few guys in there. They can do a few things, but whatever they do, I think they're going to be fine because of the leadership of 97.
Dave, any comments about Cam Hayward?
Yeah. Before I do, I just want to say something. I just got a message from my brother that my high school offensive line coach passed away today. So if you heard my phone buzz, that's what it was. So that's a little bit disheartening, but Coach Hauser, you were a great coach. You're going to be missed. Back to Cam Hayward. Bryan, thank you for bringing up Cam Hayward because everyone knows that's my guy. I wear the jersey, everything else. That's my guy. So I'm glad someone else could say Cam Hayward so I could gush over Cam Hayward. You called him Fine Wine. I think I might call him Glenn McKenna because especially if you watch How I Met Your Mother, 30-year Glenn McKenna is what they always wanted to have until they're like, oh, well, yeah. That's something that's even, the 30-year is good. but they found out that the 35 year was even better. So that kind of fits in pretty good with Cam Hayward. But it's just believe it or not, Jeffrey's been talking about it a lot, but Stephon Tuitt not being there has them asking Cam to do something different that allows him to get more pressure. When Stephon Tuitt comes back, he might not be asked to do the same thing, but what he's asked to do, he will do just as well. He will do whatever they need him to do, and he always does it well. So yes, Cam Hayward that's why he's the captain.
Let me bring up this super chat. Shield 91 gives us $10. Has no joke on injured reserve this week with a groin injury, just like half of our football team, apparently. Worried I might not get to run my first marathon, but BTSC helps me stay positive. Thanks, friends. Thank you, Shield, for the tip. And as someone that's trained several people going to marathons, that's got to be excruciating, not just painful, but to train all that for that race and then not get to do it would be disheartening. But
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
All the marathons I've trained for. And
No. I have never run a marathon. I'm saying I've trained people that have.
No, I've trained a lot of people for marathons too. They were just movie marathons.
Okay. All right.
Oh my.
So for me, I thought about in a little different way for bright spots. I thought about players that, kind of had some pressure on them this season. Naji Harris was one. I went with two players that they're similar positions. I went with Cam Sutton and James Pierre. I think that combination has played well. And yes, it hasn't always been perfect. I know James Pierre had some catches in front of him and stuff like that. He got turned around once, I think, against Buffalo. But I mean, my gosh, it's not going to be perfect. This guy was undrafted in 2020, and he's asked to play a significant amount of snaps. I would love to see him stay on the field instead of Ahkello Witherspoon in the coming weeks as Witherspoon gets more acclimated. But I think that Cam Sutton, his versatility is still really, really valuable to the Steelers. And he and Pierre working in concert with the fact that they still want to move Sutton inside is very valuable. So I have those two guys on my list to finish it up. Dave, any comment on that?
Yeah, honestly, with them, I would say more week one was where they did better. Them having Joe Hayden really, to where they don't have to be the number one.
He was the biggest loss, in my opinion.
Yes. Those guys are great as 2 and 3. You don't want to have to ask them to be 1 and 2.
No.
But also, I want to lump in with there because the person who stepped up the most last week in the secondary, I thought, was Terrell Edmonds, believe it or not. So I understand what you're saying, that there are some bright spots in the secondary as well. But with those two guys, if we can keep them as the number 2 and 3 guys, that's the goal for the Steelers. That's where I think they'll fit even better right now this season at this point.
Yeah. Bryan, anything to add on the secondary there?
No, I like what Dave said about Terrell Edmonds, but I think I'm still really feeling good about Cam Sutton. And like it was said, Joe Hayden being back changes that as well.
There you go. Real quick scheduling announcement. I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the show based on the fact that we started talking about the injuries and stuff of that nature. Set your DVR, Steeler fans, to Friday night, NFL Network, 9 p.m. Eastern time. That is James Harrison's A Football Life airs. If you've been on social media today, you've probably seen a lot of little snippets of it, like 30-second clips. There's Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin, Ben Roethlisberger. There's a lot of Joey Porter makes an appearance in that show. I'm recording it. I can't wait to watch it. It's one of the few football shows my wife will actually sit down and be engaged in. She thinks they're very interesting, regardless of who they are. So in between the Ryder Cup, I will be watching the James Harrison Football Life. So make sure you check that out for sure. Again, 9:00 Friday night on the NFL Network. All right. You all right over there?
I'm a little upset because I wasn't interviewed for James Harrison.
What were you going to say?
Well, there was that time back in 2006, right before the Denver game at the Butler Mall, where we were talking back and forth. He was at one urinal and I was at the other, and they didn't ask me about James Harrison and everything. And it's really hard when James Harrison's trying to talk to you and you're at a urinal. You're really nervous just standing there. It's like, oh my gosh, James Harrison's talking to me and I'm trying to pee, and now I can't pee. So
Stage
There
fright.
you go.
You need that much focus in order to go there, Brian.
Brian said it's like a scared turtle. All right. The water is cold. All right. You ready for some over-under, guys? Let's do it.
Absolutely.
All
Love
right.
that.
So Naji Harris continues to be a trend for me in the over-under game. Naji Harris rushing yards, 65 over-under, Dave.
Ooh.
It keeps going down.
Ooh. Yeah, well, they just keep putting. I have an article coming out sometime soon. I talked about it on Stat Geek. Jeffrey talked about it. They keep putting more defenders in the box than what the Steelers can block, and that's assuming that everyone else makes their block perfectly. There's still one extra guy that they can't account for until the Steelers kind of burn them otherwise. Believe it or not, I think I might say under this week.
Oof.
I
Brian,
think the Steelers might finally turn it to the air, which might get other teams to start backing off. That's what they really need.
Okay, I get it. Brian, over under 65.
It's got to happen sometime. So let's just say it happens this week. Let's say over.
I'm going under again, 65 yards. All right, Naji Harris touchdowns overall. I'm going to set it at a half. So does he hit pay dirt for the second week in a row? Dave, what do you think?
Over. He might not have a lot of yards, but they might need him to punch one in.
I like it. Brian?
He could go by air as well.
Yep.
I'll go over. I really think that they're trying to be innovative in using him, and they really want to make their investment look better. But I think fans are thinking that he's people are not really disappointed in the investment, but I think they want to try to give him as many situations to get in the end zone as possible too.
I'm going to go over as well. Ben Roethlisberger passing touchdowns 1.5. Dave, over under.
I'm going to go over. We're assuming that he's healthy and plays the whole game.
Correct. Yes.
So I will say that I think the Steelers have more than 1.5 passing touchdowns, regardless of who is throwing them.
Okay. Brian Anthony Davis.
Yeah, let's go over as well, but not by a bunch.
I'm going to take the over as well. Quarterback hits surrendered. This is a new category for me. After the 10 quarterback hits surrendered against the LVR, Las Vegas Raiders with 10. My gosh. I'm going to say 4.5 quarterback hits. Over under, Dave.
That's a really good number.
Thank
because
you.
I had a number in my head.
It's not my first time doing this.
Yeah, I'm gonna say over because the number I had in my head was 5. That if they could just, they're not going to keep Ben completely from getting hit like from one week to the next. It's not going to happen that fast, but it would be a big victory if they cut the number in half.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think Cincinnati's front's as good as the Raiders.
There's a lot of people that aren't as good.
Yeah, right. Brian, over under, Brian, 4.5 quarterback hits surrendered.
I'm going to say slightly under, and I was going, you guys stole thunder because I was going to say there's not many Max Crosbys or Carl Nassibs out there. I really think those guys, that's a nice offensive line that Vegas has, defensive line that Vegas has. And I tell you what, I think Max Crosby is going to be one of those guys that we talk about in 20 years for the Hall of Fame if he keeps going. I just really think that he's an awesome player, one of my favorite to watch, especially when he was destroying Baltimore. I didn't like it as much when I was watching him, mince up our line. But yeah, let's say under that. I think Dave's exactly right. They don't have the Bengals. I can't even tell you many guys on the Bengals defensive line. I know one of their main pass rushers last year was Carl Lawson, and now he's gone, and I know he's hurt too. But that's a hard defense to talk about because you used to have Dunlap and you used to have Atkins and all those guys, and I don't think they're names now.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to throw in there, just since Brian was brought it up. I know a lot of people, whether you like them or hate them, that just to announce them, the PFF scores for the entire NFL. Max Crosby is number 2 in the entire NFL with this score, just ahead of TJ Watt.
Wow.
But of course, they're both behind Cam Hayward.
Cam Hayward, really? Okay, good. I didn't know that. All right, here we go. Steelers sacks on Mr. Joe Burrow on Sunday. The line set at 3 even. Dave, what do you think?
Joe Burrow.
Let's assume that TJ Watt plays. Let's assume that Alex Highsmith does not. And let's assume that Taco Charlton does not get promoted. And they go into this game with 3.
Yeah. I'm thinking. I think if Highsmith's not going to play, I think they have to promote somebody, whether it's Taco or the other guy that they have, which I can't even remember his name right now. Sorry, I'm going to go 4. So I'm going over. The Bengals line has been playing better than they did last year, but they haven't had to face the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right. Bryan, what do you think?
They did Joe Burrow a big disservice when they went with Jamar Chase instead of a Penei Sewell or a Rashawn Slater. They really messed with him because I know they're a little bit better with the offensive line and they added a Jackson Carman and I get it, but I really don't like. I think that's what's going to hold them back and get Joe Burrow killed again. And against a team like the Steelers, he is going to definitely. He's going to be definitely in peril this weekend. So yeah, let's go over. I like what Garrett Slingerland said on the chat: 4 with Watt, 1 without, and I think they can even rack up 5.
I'm going to go over with 4 as well. Let's talk about Steelers defensive takeaways. They have not had many this season. It's still early. I'm going to say the line at 1.5. Dave, what do you think about the takeaways for the defense?
1.5. I was trying to look up something real quick because I know Joe Burrow had at least 1 interception last week.
He had 3, I think, on 3 consecutive passes.
Well, no, because of the pick 6, if you know what I mean. Yeah, he had 3, but he didn't have any the first week. I think, what was the line again?
1.5.
1.5. I'm going to go over this week if they have enough of their guys. If you have Bush, Hayden, and Watts, that I think the Steelers defense will come together more. And let's get 2 takeaways this week. Would be really nice.
Okay, what about you, Bryan? What do you think? 1.5 takeaways.
They've got to get. I'm going to say that if they have any chance, it's going to have to be 2.
I agree. I think I'm going to go with over and have 2. I hope they have a game where they have 2. They need 1. Steelers turning the ball over in any way, shape, or form. I have the line set at 0.5 or a half. What do you think, Dave?
I'm going to go over on that one as well. I really wish that the offense would play a clean game. I don't want them to be so worried about playing a clean game that they won't take a shot and they constantly keep punting. You know what I'm saying? I would rather have a back-to-back possessions where one is a touchdown and one is a turnover than have 2 punts, if you know what I mean. Because I don't want it to go too ultra conservative and just leave it on the defense. So for that reason, I think they'll have at least 1.
All right, Bryan.
Wow. They're not clean. And, I know they didn't give up much against Buffalo, which actually really surprised me. I like what Dave said there. I'm actually going to say they're going to give up 2 because the problems are not going to go away. This is not, I don't want to steal his thunder, but tomorrow night's 6-pack with Tony, it's like the Bengals might not be a gut-right game for the Steelers. So if you're expecting them to just go in and go crazy, now I could actually see them struggling at first and, maybe giving up 2 at least.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say under. I don't think they turn it over at all. I think this is one of those games that they play a clean brand of football. All right, let's go to the last one. You all ready? I was going
to say one thing real quick. I think at the end of the season, when you look back at what games where the Steelers were plus, minus, or even, I think their pluses are going to be wins and their minuses are going to be losses. I think it's the most important thing that's going to set imagine if they didn't get the takeaway in Buffalo and had a turnover. That game's probably different. Imagine if they got a takeaway against the Raiders and didn't have one. That game's probably different. You know what I'm saying? I think it's the key thing that's going to lead the most telling statistic, other than the points, that's going to lead to their records.
Sorry. I agree. No, it's okay. Let's finish it up here. Total rushing yards for the Steelers. So we already did Naji Harris individually, but total rushing yards for the Steelers over under set at 80. 80. Dave, what do you think? Over under?
Oh, I'm going under. If Naji's not getting 65, they're not getting 80. I mean, I know you'd be nice to have a nice end around and everything, but I'm not going to bank on it.
Okay, Bryan.
I'm actually banking on the end around, and because I was about to say no, under, but then I realized, I said, yeah, Naji's going over with 65, and they're going to get the 15. They might get a couple on a Ben scramble, but they're always going to have that jet sweep or something going on there. I can see that continuing to happen, but if it wasn't for the idea of a jet sweep or the fact that they like to do that and around, I would say under, but I got to go over because there's nobody right now. Benny Snell, I have no confidence in Benny Snell whatsoever. When I see him come in, I feel like when I see them handing off to him, I feel like it's a wasted down.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I'm gonna go with under. By the way, under on that 80. Okay, let's do some predictions.
Was that the last over under?
It was.
Can I ask one myself?
Sure, go for it.
Let's set the same number of 80. How about Naji Harris receiving yards?
At 80?
Yeah.
Or are you talking about combined yards?
No, I was talking about receiving yards. I think he's going to get more involved with that. I think that's high, but honestly, 80 was what I would say is I could see him having more receiving yards than the Steelers have rushing yards as a team.
Wow, that's high. I would have been thinking more like 55 receiving yards as an over under for him.
Yeah.
But I would still I agree with you. I think they're going to get him more involved in the receiving game than they are. And I think they're realizing slowly that he's more of a Le'Veon Bell two-way type player than he is just a standard in between the tackle running back. Yep. So I would say over in 55, but under in 80. What about you, Bryan?
You know what? We should have said it at 65.
I'm just going to say over. But, I really think I agree. Dave's saying everything that I want to say here tonight. I really think that the whole Pat Freiermuth thing where Ben was sure to bring up the fact that they need to use Pat Freiermuth more. Is that a little bit of a Ben smokescreen? Because he's good at that kind of stuff. That means that if he's bringing up one guy, that maybe the focus is making sure that Naji, and that kind of trying to take the focus off of them. Bengals have professional coaches. They're not going to ignore one guy, but I've seen Ben try to use smoke screens before, and maybe Muth is not going to be as heavy in the game plan this week, and Naji is. That's just what's going on in my black and gold brain.
There you go. Lifelong fan 07 gives us $4.99. Says, I think this is the easiest defensive line they'll face, and I say they have a running revelation over 80 yards. I hope you're right. I hope everyone's right. I hope they do run the ball. I hope Naji gets 115 and another 40 yards receiving. That would be awesome. Scores 2 touchdowns. What a day. But I'm not predicting that. So I'm not about to do that. But speaking of predictions, let's do our predictions for the game. Dave, what's the latest line in over under? I think the last I saw was 3.5, but it fluctuates up to 4.5 in some books. What do you have?
Yeah, it's been kind of all over the place
because of Ben's injury change.
It's up and down with the injuries. You've really noticed with this one. So right now, believe it or not, the consensus at OddsShark is at 3.
Even 3. Okay. All right.
The over under of 43. That's a low one too.
I think the 43 is what I actually put down on our picks. That was the number, but I think the number I had on our picks was 3.5 or 4. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's do our prediction time. We'll let Bryan go first since Dave's been stealing all of Bryan's thunder tonight.
I never have a problem with Dave stealing my thunder. I'll just agree with his brilliant ideas because I knew they were mine, and then I could piggyback off of that. I'm not going to cry about it. I'm just going to be like, yeah, it's fine, and it takes the heat off of me, especially when I come up with something stupid like BJ Finney from last year, which was innovative, and you guys just didn't get it. But go back to old shows. Yeah, you should. Well, we need the downloads. So go ahead and go back to old shows.
Oh my God.
I'll get you the exact date. But, I'm looking, I think the Steelers, Tony's mentioning that, hey, this might not be a get right game. He's probably right. This isn't going to be an absolute blowout. These guys, the Cincinnati Bengals, know how to score points. My gosh, when you have Higgins, and I'm not talking Magnum PI's Higgins, I'm talking T. Higgins, I'm talking Tyler Boyd, and then Jamar Chase he's going to be absolutely amazing. Those guys have the potential to score, and more than they ever did before. But I still think if TJ Watt's back in this game, that this team is going to rebound and get right. I mean, don't know how well they're going to get right. Are they going to turn into, finally, look, our problems are over? No, that's not going to happen. But they're going to win this game, and they're going to win this game by a score of 33-26.
Wow. Okay, I like it. A win's a win at this point. Dave, what's your prediction?
Yeah, it was really fun on the Scobro show when we do the predictions at the end, and we have everyone put in the live chat and we bring them up. Rich gave a Dave answer, and then everyone followed. Not everyone, but a lot of people followed suit. We gave him permission to, because it was so early in the week. We didn't have an injury report yet, so we really didn't know that there was really big factors. And they're like, if everyone plays, it was this score. If everyone doesn't, it's that one. And it's kind of nice. But now I feel like we have it a little bit closer. And I'm going to assume that, Ben, TJ Watt, Joe Hayden, Devin Bush, that those 4 players are going to be out there. And if they are, and not just out there to start, but they're out there at the end, meaning that they can play the whole way through this game, I think the Steelers will beat the Bengals. I mean, they had won how many in a row against them until they lost the last one? It was at least 9. I know that. So I'm going with the score of, what was it that I said I was going to do? I'm going 24-17 Steelers.
Oh, all right. That's very close to my prediction. I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be pretty. I think this is going to be a close game. I think the Steelers just eventually, their defense kind of overwhelms the Bengals offense. Higgins has been out the last 2 days of practice with a shoulder injury, so keep an eye on that. That could really hurt their offensive game plan. I have the Steelers winning this one 23-17, so I'll take the Steelers giving the 3, and I'll take the under of the 43. I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring affair, so we'll go with that. Let's do some – go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say, I would not be shocked if the Steelers held the Bengals to single digits. If that was the case when the game was over, I wouldn't be surprised if they have all their defensive pieces in place and they come out here and say, hey, we are that defense that was here in week 1. I could see it. I'm not ready to pick it, but I could see that I could see that happening.
Okay. Real quick, let's do bold predictions and we'll get to trivia. So Dave, what's your bold prediction for this week?
I didn't even think about my bold prediction for this week. My bold prediction.
Can't be bougie, by the way.
Oh, can't be bougie. No bougie. No bougie. My bold prediction is that the Steelers will be leading at halftime. That's bold because they haven't been able to. When's the last time the Steelers led at halftime? Not counting the preseason. It's been a while.
Yep.
So my bold prediction, I'm not saying they're going to lead by much, but I'm going to say that I think the Steelers are going to have the lead at halftime. I don't think it's going to be they have the lead and hold on. I think they're just going to have it and kind of play out the second half just the way it goes. But that's it. That's what I got.
All right, Bryan, bold prediction.
Okay, number 12 is going down. The Steelers will go ahead and score a touchdown on their first possession for the first time in 12 games.
A touchdown or just points?
I'm saying a touchdown.
All right.
Can I throw a little stat out there?
Sure.
If the Pittsburgh Steelers score a field goal on their first possession, as bad as you would think that would be, it would put Matt Canada scoring more points on average per game on his first possession as an offensive coordinator than Randy Fichtner did in his career.
Goodness gracious.
Oh my god!
Because Randy was under a point. It was 0.9 something.
Old Randy land. Well, I had 2 bold predictions. One of them was they were going to score points on the opening drive. So Bryan, I'm right there with you. I have my second one is that Pat Freiermuth hits pay dirt for the first time as a pro. So those are my 2 bold predictions. I want to get this vodka drinker gave us $5 and says, how is Lance? I'm assuming you're talking about Lance Williams, and I can say I have not spoken to that man since I left for another venture. And so I can't speak for Bryan or Dave. Haven't talked to Lance in a really long time. So you all can, if you...
he responded to one of our tweets the other day about one of our shows. The end of is this the end of the road was for Ben Roethlisberger for his Jeffrey Benedict's on the cutting room floor, and he threw a tweet back to me and said, I believe it's boys to men here, in which he's going right up in my alley. And I said, what? You mean it's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday?
That's a good one.
Yes.
Yeah. The last time I actually communicated with Lance, he tried to say something to me, and I was dealing with a lot of crap. Literally, it was when my septic backed up in my house, so I didn't respond right away, and it hasn't been there. But hope he's still doing well. Hope he's still down on the Steelers, because that's what we would expect him to be.
Absolutely. All right, let's do some trivia quick, Dave. And Bryan, do you have one too?
I actually do.
All right, sweet. Go ahead, Dave.
All right. The Steelers are playing their first AFC North matchup of the 2021 season. That means that since the AFC North became a conference in 2002, all four teams have played 114 regular season games against each other. I want to know if you guys you can probably have an idea who's got the most wins and who has the least. I want to know if you can guess out of that 114 how many wins each of these teams have. Do you want to start with the Steelers?
So we're saying overall team wins.
No, AFC North wins in the regular season. So out of 114 is what it's out of, because it's 6 every year.
Right.
Okay. How many wins do you think the Steelers have in the North since it's been a thing?
I'm going to say 92. Oh, but crap, they had a couple bad years.
Yes, I got to take that back. I'm talking wins, so the tie doesn't come in there. I'm not counting.
Okay. All right. So I'll say 90 even. There you go.
Okay, so I am going to actually go ahead and say 76 for the Steelers.
All right. Well, if it's the closest without going over, it doesn't matter if it's the closest without going over, because Bryan was closer. It was 79. They have 79. They're 79, 34, and 1. Okay. What do you think how many wins do you think the Cincinnati Bengals have so far in the AFC North?
They had a few good years.
Yes, they did.
The Steelers were at 76, you said?
79.
79. I'm going to put the Bengals at 38.
I'm going to put them at 55, Dave.
Okay, if they're closest without going over, it would be Jeff, but Bryan was definitely closer because it was 51. Okay. How
Price is right rules.
Yep. How about the Cleveland Browns?
That's probably more.
What did the Bengals have again? 40
50,
what?
No, 51.
51.
51.
35.
79.
I'm going to go 32.
And you both would lose if it's Price is Right, because they have 30.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. And the reason I did that, because I wanted to save them. If you do the math right, knowing that there was a tie in there, you could add them all up and realize that Baltimore has 67. So I'm not going to even bother with that. But if the Cleveland Browns with their 30 wins and the Steelers with 79, what that means is that if the Browns went 6-0 every year in the division and the Steelers went 0-6, the Browns would not reach the number of wins in the division with the Steelers until the year 2029. Just putting that out there.
No, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Good trivia. Is that it?
That's it.
All right, Bryan, go ahead.
All right, this one's really simple. With the woes of the running game, there is a possibility that the Steelers will not have a 1,000-yard rusher this season. In the 1980s, the Pittsburgh Steelers only had 1 year when a rusher went over 1,000 yards. Who was it and what year?
I'm not good at the 80s Steelers at all.
What year? I'm honestly, They had a decent team. I'm going to assume it wasn't 82 because even though they were 6-3, they only played 9 games.
Yeah.
In the 80s, this one's tough. I don't, because I'm trying to think. I don't know. Jeff, you might be able to know this.
No, I was born in 83.
But think, this is different. Did Franco Harris have 1,000-yard rushing in his last 2 or 3 years in Pittsburgh? I don't know that he did. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I don't even know what year did he go to Seattle.
84.
He went to Seattle in 84. So he was with the Steelers.
Okay.
Was it because my first instinct was to be like an 80 that Franco Harris went over 1,000, but I think that would make the question a little bit too simple. I know we got close in at least one of those, so I'm going to say a little bit later, and let's go with I'm going to say would it be someone like Worley in 89? I'll go with that one.
It was not Worley in 89. Worley,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, had 770 some yards. And
Because there wasn't much in between there. I know like 88, wasn't that like Merrill Hodge led the team in rushing, but it was hardly any or something like that.
You're forgetting about guys like Ernest Jackson and Walter Abercrombie. But in 1981, Franco Harris had 987 yards.
He was close.
So he did not get there. But in his final year in Pittsburgh, Franco Harris had 1,007 yards in 1983, which is really odd to think that you have 1,000-yard rusher that late in his career in his final season in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I mean, because he did all right in 82 as well when they didn't have as many games, right?
That's correct. And you had a couple of guys that 82, he had 600 and some yards.
Okay, sounds about right.
But you had a couple guys like Frank Pollard fell short, I believe, by about 7 yards in either 84 or 85. And Abercrombie came close, but Frank Pollard came the closest.
Okay, so that's why that was such a good question, because I was thinking Franco, but I never thought about him doing it the year after the strike. So that was a good question.
All right, let's do some final thoughts here, and we'll call it a show. Bryan, we'll start with you. Go ahead.
All right, I have a quick final thought here. Not only was I talking about a little too much information when I was talking about James Harrison at a urinal, but James Harrison said some magic words to me because it was the week that I bought a ring for my fiance. And I went home and told my fiance, who is now my wife, Jennifer, I went and told her what James Harrison said, and he immediately became her least favorite player because James Harrison said, no, you don't put a ring on it. Don't do that. So I will never forget James Harrison for saying that about me. So now when I get my NFL, a podcast life, when that happens, I'm going to make sure that James Harrison talks about that because I'm sure he remembers that whole thing. But with that being said, look, we talked about it not being a get right game, and check out Tony's show, but really don't jump off that bandwagon just yet. Jeff said it earlier on that this is going to be a bumpy road. Dave's reiterated that as well. It's going to be really interesting to see how this team grows, but I really see this team as being the antithesis of what they were the last 3 or 4 years by stumbling down the stretch, and I could see them getting hot down the stretch in midseason. I still think that this is a playoff team, so don't let one game fool you. Because, hey, look, in the AFC, there's only 2 undefeated teams, and they're in the AFC West, and it's Denver, and it's the Los Angeles Chargers. So all those other teams that you're talking about, in the AFC, am I incorrect in that?
What about the Raiders?
The Raiders are 2-0.
That's who I meant. I mean, it wasn't the Chargers. It was the Raiders.
Chargers lost last week, right? Yeah, they lost.
Yeah, the Chargers lost to Dallas. Excuse me. Thank you for giving me that look.
Seattle has 2 losses.
Yeah, that's not a Seattle has 2 losses.
Seattle only has 1.
I tell you what, I am praying week 6 that Seattle has 2 losses. When we do the preview, that's all I'm going to talk about. So, all right, we're done.
All right, Dave, go ahead.
All right. When the Steelers went into Buffalo and upset the Bills, everyone felt that the Steelers were so much more than what they were. And when the Steelers stumbled at home to the Raiders, now I feel like all the Steelers fans are looking at the Steelers being less than what they are. Who they really are is somewhere in between both of those teams. So right now where a lot of fans are feeling is they're really down on the Steelers. But I don't think that's where they are. But they are a team that had that – the difference between success and failure is a very delicate, narrow area. They have to take care of the ball and they have to get takeaways. You don't have, if you're going to turn over the ball, you have to get the takeaways in return. If you don't turn over the ball and you don't get takeaways, you can still overcome, but you can't do it without it. That's what they have to do. You've either got to make the big plays on defense in that, the big splash plays, or you've got to avoid them on offense for going for the other team. That's kind of where this team is right now. And who knows, maybe by the time we get to November, we're having a completely different discussion.
All I can think about is Denny Green when he said that who we thought they were.
That was the whole point of our show.
Who we thought they were.
That's yeah.
You want to crown?
Let him off the hook.
We had him. We let him off the hook. The Bears are who they thought. Rest in peace, Denny Green. All right, good show, guys. We will be back next week to preview the Week 4 game in Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers. That'll be a 4:25 kickoff, and we'll also obviously be back after the game on Sunday for the post-game show. So check us out there. Dave, send us out.
Hey,
have a good weekend, everyone. Go Steelers. We'll see you.